Hello, in this verse we look at Mangala Sutta, verse 6. Mata pitu upattanam puttadarassa sangaho anakula chakammanta etam mangalamuttamam. And with the text up. Mata pitu upattanam. So let's see if I can enlarge this a bit. Here we are. Mata pitu upattanam puttadarassa sangaho anakula chakammanta etam mangalam uttamam. Upattana, upatthana, Sanskrit upasthana, from the root stha, literally standing up to. Of course, in English, if you stand up to somebody, it's the idea of not being browbeaten by them, not being frightened off, resisting them. But the upasthana in Sanskrit and Pali has an entirely different meaning. That is the idea of approaching to attend upon somebody in a respectful or reverential manner. So that's how we get. Let me call up iPad. Um, stha, upastha, and makes a verbal noun, upasthana, and in the Pali, upatthana. So, oops, my iPad's playing up a bit. Oh, sorry. So, upasthana or upatthana. So, like attending in service, attending upon them, being with them, in attendance on them in a respectful, reverential way. Mata pitu upattanam. So, respectful attendance upon one's mother and father. We have the mata and pita is father. These are treated in Sanskrit as words ending in the vowel ri. So the stem form is matri and pitri. That stem form does not exist as an independent word. So the nominative form becomes along a, mata, and similarly for pitri, pitta. When you combine these words, or rather put them as part of a compound, what happens is in Sanskrit, you have one's father's house, pitri pitrigriha, pitrigriha, the father house, one's father's house. So this vocalic re appears in the combining form. And in Pali, that becomes an u, so pitu. So the form pitu you will see in a compound. Now, in Sanskrit, exactly the same happens. One's mother's house, matrigriha, In Pali, just oddity of Pali, you can have in its combining form matu, but you also find the full nominative form mata also used as a combining form in Pali. So if we look back to at the opening words of verse 6, mata pitu upattanam, that could equally be written in Pali as matu pitu upattanam. Matu pitu upattanam. By convention or just by usage within the language, when you speak about father and mother, what happens is you give mother first and it occurs in its full form. So by standard convention within the language, and talk about your mother and your father or your father and your mother, it, in combining form, it would be mata pitu, mata pitu. So the way we see it appearing in Pali here is the standard Pali form. So mata pitu upattanam, respectful attendance upon one's parents. Puttadarasa sangaho. Sangaha, I've done a note on it here. I think I've done a note on yes, sangaha. In Sanskrit, sangraha. Sangraha means from grah, to take. So sangraha would mean collecting or gathering. Um, that's the original meaning in Sanskrit. In Pali, it's come to mean in this context the support of one's family, as will as the father and husband will support the family. It may be from it could conceivably, I suppose, relate back to the old hunter-gatherers. He gathered for the family. There we are. That's just a speculation that came into my mind, but just treat it here as meaning support. So, Puttadarasa Sangaho, the Sangaha, the supporting of the Puttadarasa, of one's Putta, children, and Dara, wife. Note here we have Putta expressed in the singular, or the stem form, I should say, the stem form Putta, and it doesn't here differentiate between singular and plural because it's now part of a compound noun. So Puttadarasa Sangaho the standard translation would be the support of one's children, put it in the plural in English here, and wife. Note that this word dara, oops, um, ah, funny, the screen is, oh, there we are. Dara, meaning a wife. Oddly enough, it's a grammatically masculine noun, and even more oddly, in Sanskrit, even if you're talking about just one wife, it's actually a masculine plural word. Grammatically, it's one of these slight oddities. There we are. The dara equals wife in Sanskrit. In Pali, here we have it in the singular, but equally treated as a masculine, grammatically masculine noun, even though of course it refers to a woman. So puttadarasa sangaho, the support of one's wife and children. Anakula chakammanta, eta mangalamuttamam. So kammanta, acts, and in particular, I explain the word in more detail in a moment. Acts, and in particular, one's business or one's livelihood, what you do, the acts you do to make a living. Though that it's not strictly confined to that any kind of acts. that anakula, um, you know, uncrowded, unthronged. Again, we'll come back to that. So let's look at kamanta. Um, so we've got karma, in Pali kamma, meaning a doing or an act, plus anta, meaning end, and cognate, directly cognate with our English word end. Now, just as in English we can use the word end to mean your objective, what you're seeking to achieve by something, as we would say, to what end was he doing that? In other words, for what purpose? To what end? What were you seeking to achieve by it? And you make a compound noun, karmanta, in Sanskrit, and similarly in Pali, kamanta, of course, the long a in karma anta, in Sanskrit, karmanta, becomes short in Pali because it's followed by a consonant cluster, the nt. So that would literally mean the objectives of one's work, one's doing ends, the objectives to which you're doing something. But curiously, I'm not quite sure how it happened. Instead of the original meaning, the objectives of one's work, your goals, your objectives, what you were seeking to achieve, it just came to mean one's work, one's deeds generally. And let me I just want to see whether Manu Williams is going to help us here. Yeah. So see if we can see it in Manu Williams Sanskrit. So the karmanta, the end, sorry, the end or the accomplishment of a work, or the um, it suggests here that it's the end of it in the sense of the conclusion, the coming to an end of it, rather than the objective of it. I think actually it could be both. Or the end of or conclusion of a sacred action. And then we look in the third line here in the Moni Williams definition. Um, it's generalized, not so much the end of it, just the work, business, act, management, administration, and so on. In the Noble Eightfold Path, we have sammakamanta, not just sammakamma, but sammakamanta, right action. And I don't see any distinction between sammakamma, which is not how it's put, and sammakamanta, which is how it's put to the Noble Eightfold Path. Here, there it just means action. So looking back now to our verse 6 here, anakulacha kamanta, kamanta used in the plural, and I think it just means one's the things you have to do in life is how I interpret it, because anakulacha kamanta, in other words, the things that you have to do, that which you're engaged with, is anakula, like uncramped, uncrowded. And this reflects back to the Karanayametta Sutta, where one is advised to be apakicho, of few things, of few chores. So I think what is meant here is not so much the morality of one's acts, but don't overburden your life with so many things you have to do that it becomes akula, that it becomes cramped, crowded. And if I remember correctly, in many of the suttas where a person is deciding to go forth from home into the homeless life, the pabbajja, the going forth, it talks about the home life, the house of life being akula, being kind of crowded, your mind, and your efforts, all crowded with the things that you have to do. So here, and I've done a fairly full note. You'll see. Um, um, I won't go through it all now, much as I'd like to. But if you look at the note that I've done on Anakula, and with a couple of quotes from the Bodhicharyavatara as well. Unmattairakulamehi, the earth is crowded with the intoxicated. And Vyadhyakula, disease afflicted, overwhelmed by disease. Anyway, there we can go through that at your leisure. Oops, turn back. Ooh, where are we? Oh, sorry. Oops, I got rid of the very thing I wanted to call up. There we are. And the usual refrain, etam mangalam uttamam. So I'll read it through for you again. Mata pitu upattanam puttadarassa sangaho anakula chakammanta etam mangalamuttamam. And once more. Mata pitu upattanam puttadarassa sangaho anakula chakammanta etam mangalamuttamam. And that's it on this video.